I really want to thank you all for coming today to the first of our series, Meet Your Congressman. And we have a real privilege here today that we have one of our congressmen, the congressman who represents most of our employees in Texas, is Congressman Kevin Brady. And so we wanted to start the series off with Congressman Brady and allow him to come and meet his constituents, our constituents. He represents us very well in Washington. And Congressman, you represent more than 120 of our employees live in your district. So I think this is a target-rich environment, if you will.
Not that I was thinking like
that. Congressman Brady is serving in his 7th term in the 8th Congressional District. Now, the 8th District starts in Louisiana, the Louisiana border, and moves all the way across to the northern part of Houston, if you will. So he's got quite a diverse district, and again, which encompasses a lot of our employees and our activities here. In his last re-election efforts, he won with 73% of the vote, a real impressive number, and that obviously says your constituents like you a lot. He serves on the powerful House Ways and Means Committee, is the ranking member on the Subcommittee on Trade, and is a member of the Social Security Subcommittee. Before being elected to Congress, he served 18 years with the Chamber of Commerce as a Chamber of Commerce executive, and then served 6 years in the Texas House. He has been awarded a number of awards, the Golden Building Award by Watchdogs of the Treasury, and is a perennial winner of the Spirit of Enterprise Award. The congressman lives in the Woodlands with his wife Kathy, 2 sons, Will, who's 11, and Sean, who is 8. So it's really a privilege to have you here with us today, because you live here, you know our people, you know your district, and we just thought this would be a great opportunity to, and that's why we wanted you to kick off our series.
Great.
Thank you.
We're in good shape. Jim, thanks very much for having me. Thanks for all of you taking time for your busy day. Appreciate you, Mr. Mueller, as well, being here. Thanks for letting me kick off the series, I think. We'll see how the questions go. Boy, Jim mentioned it, but I've been in Congress a while, but I always consider myself a Chamber of Commerce executive. I love working with small businesses, helping trading, helping them grow into big businesses, recruiting new companies to our region. I love that job. And when I first went to the Texas House, and then on to Congress, what I used to tell small businesses are that you have to be involved in the legislative process. It's not a matter of choice. It's a matter of survival. Because in truth, you can work your whole life, make all these great decisions in your business and your project, everything you're doing in the government, with one change in the tax code, one change in regulation, one anything can wipe out years, decades of all that they do in small business. Well, the same goes for you right now. You are the next endangered species in Washington, in America, which are energy producers, energy workers, because they've really drawn a target in Washington on energy companies in America, at least traditional energy companies, oil and natural gas. And Jim and I were on the airplane the other day talking about this. And I also appreciate the fact that you helped brief our congressional staffs from around the region on these energy issues as well. But we've got threats, obviously cap and trade, a major threat. By driving up, sort of dividing America's energy sources into the evil fuels, that would be you, and the good fuels, which aren't you, wind, solar, biomass, others, but even supposedly evil fuels, coal, natural gas, oil, in some cases they think nuclear is as well. Driving the price of these fuels up in order to force people into these fuels is a losing proposition for our economy in a major way. And the fact is, we don't have to do it. If the president were to say, America needs to transition to cleaner burning fuels, we need to be less dependent on foreign energy, and We need more options for our vehicles, for our homes, utilities, things like that. Everyone in this room would say, absolutely, I'm on board. But the divisive approach they've taken, the cap and trade approach, which has not worked in any other region that has used it around the world, is one that has huge economic consequences on us and our region and on the country. Our region, if this were a map of the United States in the back wall, and other than coal country, if you drew a big target on the region of the country that would pay the most in lost jobs, that would be hurt the most economically, it would be centered right here in Southeast Texas. It captured part of Southwest Louisiana because the industries they're really targeting are energy production, refining, exploration, chemical manufacturing, paper mills, which we have several in our district, steel mills, which I have in my district as well, and agriculture. Those are the industries that will pay the greatest price. The state comptroller from Texas, Susan Combs, you may have heard of her, she estimates that depending on what that final cap and trade bill is, we would lose 200,000 jobs in our region in the first 4 years of cap and trade. And then it builds from there. And so for us, it is really a matter of survival that bill not pass. They rushed, you may remember, they rushed it through the House. We had almost no chance, 24 hours I think, to read this 1,000-page bill, rushed it through the House. It has slowed down in the Senate. And I think the election of Senator Scott Brown from Massachusetts, which was nothing short of a miracle, has not only stopped health care in its track, but really given us some firepower on cap and trade. The worry, we have two worries. It's very much alive. Cap and trade is in the President's new budget from 2 weeks ago. And for some, cap and trade is a religion. It's not a transition to cleaner burning fuels. It's a religion. So they're not stopping. Our worry is if we're able to stop that bill, one, they're going to pivot to something. We don't know what it is yet, but they're not letting it die. They're going to pivot to something. So we have to stay on our toes. Those from energy producing states and regions have to stay on our toes. But also the EPA, now that the Supreme Court's given them the jurisdiction over to regulate 6 greenhouse gases based on the Clean Air Act, which is false. That is a false reading of that bill. Nonetheless, they've moved very aggressively to engage in cap and trade from the regulatory side, not just regulating tailpipe emissions, but source emissions as well. And so a number of us have introduced legislation to prevent the EPA from moving forward on any of that regulation without Congress first weighing in, because trying to do through the back door through an unelected bureaucracy versus coming through your elected representatives is wrong. And again, will have a damaging effect. So cap and trade, if that were the only issue we were dealing with, it would be worth your involvement in the legislative process in Washington. But you face other threats. We face other threats. The new budget this year, as for the last 2 years, under the Speaker Nancy Pelosi, have taken a beat on energy production and refinery through the tax code. They literally have gone back to 1913, picked out every part of the tax code for 100 years that deals with energy production and refining and exploration. They've pulled it out and have said these are $30 billion of, quote, subsidies to energy companies. Now all this does is deal with the normal way we explore and expense and do research and all that in America. And in fact, Secretary of Treasury Tim Geithner, who I'm not a big fan of, believe he needs to step down. Probably, I think, the worst Treasury Secretary I've seen in my life, period. He had the nerve to say the reason we need to tax American energy companies more is because our tax code has encouraged the overproduction of oil and gas in America. Okay, we're two-thirds dependent, 60% dependent. And I hate to think what it would be if it didn't encourage production in America. And some of those standard tax, part of our tax code, deal with the way we get capital for energy exploration, short-term and long-term. The expensing of your research, your G&G expenses, the way you pay out those wells. And one of them I find particularly ironic that they intend to raise taxes on. 2005, I serve on the Ways and Means Committee, so we do all the tax issues. 2005, worried about companies that were outsourcing jobs. We changed the tax code, and we said, if you're a company, any company that creates jobs in America, manufactures in America, invests or invents here in America, you have a lower tax code than if you do the same thing overseas. Makes sense. We reward companies to create jobs here. Well, under this proposal by the President and Speaker Pelosi, that will stay in place except for one industry in America is singled out. Guess which one that is? Energy. Under their proposal, you'll be taxed as if the investments and jobs and manufacturing you do here in the United States were done overseas. And this is critical not just for production exploration. Refineries have taken advantage of that to make those investment decisions back home here. So in effect, we're encouraging companies to go to the lowest salary regions, to go to the areas that have the least regulation on them. And in fact, our tax code, in that case, treats them the same whether they're doing it here or doing it abroad, which again is bad for America, bad for our energy mix, certainly bad for you, because that's all part of the equation within our industry of where these jobs and investments are made. There's other threats as well, because a lot of our companies are producing in America and producing in other countries. The President's proposed to change the way they tax our companies, which would in fact double tax U.S. companies who both sell here but sell abroad as well. This is critical for our Houston region because we've got 340,000 jobs. Oh, excuse me, about 300,000 jobs in the region tied to Texas companies who sell here, but they also sell around the world, produce around the world. In fact, one of the reasons I've taken the top Republican on the Trade Subcommittee is that I believe this is really the key to our jobs future. With 95% of the customers in the world outside the United States, it's not enough to just buy American. You have to sell American. You know, you have to sell our products and services throughout the world, every corner we can get to. But we find that, one, a lot of those markets are closed. Two, our tax code, we're one of the few countries that double taxes our companies when they do that. And so under this proposal, we in effect double tax companies for selling their American products throughout the world. It's going to cost us jobs abroad, but also cost us jobs here at home because many of our, especially energy industry, they may have, there's a company down the street here that said, look, we have a project in Algeria. It has 40 workers on that project. But we have 400 workers here in Houston to do the support, the monitoring, the technology, the operation of it from here because we're allowed to do it. If they raise those taxes on our companies that work internationally, it's going to cost us jobs. And final point, in addition to all those threats, cap and trade, new taxes, new international taxes, they're also looking at changing the way companies hedge for their financial aid. It's an area I'm frankly not an expert in, but the end result of it is they're looking at going after the giant hedge fund and traders up in Wall Street. What they'll hit are energy companies that manage their finances and capital in a way that they can maximize it, get the best of bang, bang the buck for all of that. Again, it's a series of proposals, I think, put forward by people who don't understand how hard your job is, how risky it is, how long-term your investments are in the impact you have on our country. And one of my frustrations up there coming from an energy state is that if someone attacks the U.S. auto industry, Congress will bend over backward to try to save those 750,000 jobs. But in the energy industry, we have more than 2 million workers, good-paying jobs, really good-paying jobs, and jobs for some people on our oil rigs and others who have a high school degree and wouldn't get a good job. Yet they feel free to attack our industry anytime they choose, just because big oil, big energy isn't popular. Well, I think one of the reasons, I'll finish with this, I think one of the reasons we're struggling economically, we're falling behind other countries in recovering from the recession, we're falling behind what we normally do to get out of a severe recession like this is because we've got people who don't understand how to create jobs in America, and who I think use sort of the political, what's popular, to punish industries that are actually, your only fault is you've done your job so well over the years people take it for granted. In other parts of the region don't understand how to do it. So with that, Jim, with your permission, can I stop right there? I just want easy questions, okay? I'm in Texas. I get hammered in Washington all week long. But yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We have a charlatan like Eric Holder wanting to investigate CIA officers for defending the country, yet we can't seem to get hearings to find out the, well, I'll call them what they are, liars on climate science that have, even the professor that the climatic research unit has admitted that they don't global warming for 15 years. What are the rules within the House to have hearings like this to investigate these kinds of scientific frauds?
Yeah, great question. The answer is the rules we have only apply to the majority. Now, I'll say I'm not kidding you, but in truth, the House works so much differently than the Senate. Everything comes through the Speaker of the House. That gavel she holds is so powerful. They decide what bills come to the floor, what the rules are, what the debate are. Amendments, usually none. Alternatives, usually none. The hearings we hold, Ways and Means Committee, last year, amidst all this economy, I think we did 3 hearings, only and none really on health care, none on cap and trade. So they orchestrate those things very carefully. We're not going to get a hearing, I don't think, on the non-science, the manipulating of science on climate change. We're not going to get, I think, hearings on Eric Holder's issues that we want to check. We'll raise heck, we'll write letters, we'll do all that, do the press conferences, but at the end of the day, they'll decide on it. And my thought is, look, all of us, most of us, a lot of us have children. We all want to give them a better world and climate. I don't know anyone who wakes up and says, I really would like to do some destroying of our earth today. It just doesn't happen. But I'm not sold on the science, and my thought is, if you want to move together to cleaner burning fuels, count me in. But if scientists have to manipulate the data, or block it, or keep other peers from reviewing theirs, then it's not science to begin with. And we certainly ought to be not putting in something that could harm us so dramatically as cap and trade, especially when China and India have no, they're not going to go along in any way in that whole issue. So it's frustrating. The answer is frustrating. But thanks for reminding me. Very helpful. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Congressman Brady, I'm convinced that there's going to be a significant increase in Republican seats and independent seats come November. What are the chances of any of these things being passed between now and then? And what are the chances, if they are passed between now and then, of them being repealed when we get a different representation in Congress?
It is a great question. It is always harder to repeal than to put it in place in the first place. Plan A, repeal, take it back, is Plan B. But we ought to focus on Plan A, which is to stop it from becoming law, because it is very difficult to turn that back around, especially if you have the same president. Getting a veto-proof vote on these things is very tough. So you're almost locked in for the whole first term of those who are in the White House. And so our goal is to stop. Again, on health care, I want to be real clear. Our goal is to send them back to the drawing board, because we do need health care reform in America. We absolutely need to make it better. On cap and trade, our goal is to kill it, stop it, period. It's going down the wrong track. I think we've got a good chance, if we keep the pressure on them, people like you stay engaged, of stopping cap and trade. The EPA is another challenge. Where they pivot to is the other part we've got to watch for. But we are determined, if the American public gives us a chance with that gavel again, trust us with it again, we're going to repeal everything bad we think's occurred this session. Yes, sir.
Bill Thomas, Congressman Brady, thank you for coming.
Sure.
One of the things I see is we get attacked in the oil industry, oil and gas industry, because even though we provide really important, well-paying jobs with great benefits, there's just not enough of us. One of the things I do see, though, is Congress is always ready to, I don't mean this in a bad way, agricultural states have a lot of clout. Have you been able to liaise with maybe more conservative congressmen from agricultural states and say, hey guys, there but for the grace of God, you. Next one on the T is going to be you. I can't help but think that there's going to be additional ways to take away subsidies for farming and other industries like that. Do you understand where I'm going?
Yeah, absolutely. The question was, energy states are often outnumbered.
Yeah.
Can we team up with ag states and ag legislators on these issues? The answer is yes. Cap and trade has brought us together. In the past, the ethanol group versus the energy group, lots of tension, lots of fighting. Cap and trade absolutely unified because they know in the ag community, if their inputs, their pesticides, their prices, all that goes up, their commodity prices go up and they become non-competitive. In fact, the Department of Agriculture just came out with a study that showed at a minimum the inputs for our ag community go up by 22-24%, and we lose, gosh, what's the number? 50-some million acres of row crop production will be lost to other countries because we won't be able to compete. Just as our chemical companies won't be able to compete, our manufacturing companies won't be able to compete if cap and trade drives up the price of energy. Ag knows they won't either. So, yeah, that's the issue, Bill, that's brought us together against cap and trade. Yes, sir.
Congressman, earlier you said that cap and trade was a religion in lines of stuff. And I know you're on our side, and many representatives here are, but how are we supposed to help you influence people that aren't listening at all and aren't even in our district?
Yeah, 2 ways. Great question. 2 ways. It's very old-fashioned. It works. One, you have to speak out. You have to make sure your member of Congress, your senators, even your president knows exactly how you feel. Don't take it for granted. Second thing, you need to reach out into other districts. I mean, not by emailing them or phoning them. I'm telling them we won't pay attention. But inviting those members of Congress to your company to meet real-life employees whose jobs would be affected by it is critical. Jim and I have talked about this. But getting family members, friends, other co-workers in those districts, getting them to speak out, not just in other states, but in our region. I mean, there is no reason for any lawmaker from Texas to vote for cap and trade. And that's like a Detroit lawmaker voting against autos. It's crazy because you're undermining your whole economy. So even in our region, in our state, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get your friends and others contacting their member of Congress. And I still think that these energy issues are hard to beat in Washington. We've had some success. They're hard to beat. We can beat them back home if we will put lawmakers with you, with real workers, so they can put a face to energy. Because I'll stop with this. As opposed to other industries, in Washington there are no energy workers, just energy executives. And that's how they view our industry. We've got to put a real face on our energy industry, which is why Jim and Mr. Mueller and others are doing things like this. We've got to get you in front of lawmakers so they know whose job they just put at risk right here. So, does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Speaking out and then reaching out, magnifying your voice, no substitute for it. Absolutely no substitute. Yeah, Jim, I'm sorry.
The census, with the new census, and what are the expectations for Texas, and what do you see?
Yeah, questions about the census and gaining House seats. We should gain, we're such a fast-growing state, we should gain 3 or 4, maybe on the cusp of a 4th congressional seat. That would make us, we're 36 members of the House, which again is growing. California's losing some, Florida. When would you have heard that? California's losing population. But look, look at the policies that follow on energy, on taxes, on spending, on, they're the model for where we shouldn't be heading and a model for actually where we are. And it's a great point. People and families and businesses are migrating to economies that are bold, can-do states. You can do it here. We have a low tax. We've got, less regulation. Move it. You can do this. And it's a great example. But I think Jim will gain 3 for sure, maybe 4, which will increase our clout, obviously, up there in Washington. Can I mention something today? Because it's someone's birthday. It's Joe Biden's stimulus birthday today. Yeah, happy birthday, Joe. 1 year anniversary of the stimulus bill, $860 billion. That's before interest, well over $1 trillion. All of it borrowed. All of it borrowed, not one of the dollars paid for. We were told, not a single Republican in the House voted for the stimulus. We were told if we passed it in a rush, again, another 24-hour deal, barely time to read it. We were told it would control unemployment, it would jumpstart this economy, and restore consumer confidence. Well, unemployment's nearly at 10%, the worst number among our competitors around the world, by the way. We've lost 4 million more jobs since the stimulus. And the public, I don't follow the New York Times much, but they did a poll here a few days ago that showed only 6% of Americans believe the stimulus has helped our economy. And more than half now feel less financially secure than they did when that bill passed. That ought to tell you something. Now they're looking at a second stimulus right now. And but for that snowstorm, thank goodness, last week, we'd be headed that way. That global warming is not working out in Washington. But, you look at that, and I think the way it was designed is really designed to save government jobs. Not jobs in the private sector. And government jobs have one thing in common. They go away when the spending stops. They just do. Private sector jobs create the right incentives, they go on forever. So they put so much money into that. A lot of it to state and local government bailouts, unfortunately. Little to infrastructure. I think 6% of all that, maybe 7%, went to roads and bridges and mobility, construction type jobs. So little went to small business that they actually had more money in the stimulus to buy public art in America than to help small businesses create jobs. Literally, in our committee, went through all of that. And the way that money's been wasted, we've all read about the fake congressional districts and the imaginary jobs in there that they've been touting, the exaggerations. But look at how some of that money was spent. We've all heard about the $3 million turtle crossing in Florida. You probably heard about the $50,000 hand puppet grant. This is a hand puppet. So I'm kidding. That's my illustration. That's pathetic. But you may not have heard of $4 million bike trail to connect to Taco Bell in Massachusetts. Honest to goodness, $4 million biking trail. In University of New York, you're going to think I'm making this up. University of New York at Buffalo, $390,000 to conduct a study to determine how drinking malt liquor beer ties into marijuana use. So, you're going to think I'm making this up. You and I, under that study, you and I are paying 100 people $45 a day for 3 weeks to drink beer and smoke pot. And I'm not making that up. No, I'm not taking that decision. Yeah, but it's crazy. I mean, think $390,000. That's probably what, together, all of our hard-earned tax dollars that we send to Washington probably went to just that study from us in this room. There was a National Institutes of Health, which does, by the way, some great groundbreaking research for medical. They really do some amazing things. But like a lot of government agencies, they got so much money poured at them, they just poured it out the door. You know what I mean? Just shoved it out there. They did a number of foreign studies. One of them, I was reading this morning, they spent $73,000 in Asia to explore if the ancient Asian dragon boat races enhance the lives of cancer survivors. Studying dragon boat races if they help people who have cancer. I'm not making it up at all. But when we waste that type of money, we go this deep in debt. I mean, one issue, cap and trade keeps me awake a lot. The spending and the deficit keeps me awake all night long. Because we are spending ourselves in a position I don't know that our grandkids can dig out. And $1.4 trillion debt last year, same this year, same next year, the new president's budget, $1 trillion deficits every year for a decade. For a decade. We can never, and under it, they create a permanently larger government as a percentage of our economy for our whole existence, except for World War II. Our share of the government that we take out of our economy, 18%. Stay there, you know, good times, bad, stays around 18%. Under the new president's budget, it goes to 24% and never gets smaller ever again. So not only do our kids have to pay back all the debt, probably through higher taxes, but our economy will forever shoulder a bigger burden of government than we ever had. And the reason we prospered is because we've had a smaller government than France. You know, we've had smaller governments than many of our competitors. Now we're exploding it. It's going to hurt us in the long term. It's one of the reasons, again, coming full circle back to cap and trade and energy. If we take more responsibility for our own energy needs, if we have more diversified energy, it's not just good for your jobs, it is great for our jobs in this country. Economically, we're stronger. We can afford to pay back some of these debts. It's really key to our success. I didn't come here to tell you what an amazing job you're doing, but you are. But we need to do more of it. We need more of you working in this industry if we're going to pull out of this recession, if we're going to be strong again. So I'm convinced we can. We have amazing resources in America. We hate being in a recession. I mean, no country hates being in a recession more than Americans. We just naturally bounce back. But right now, I almost think the government's in the way, you know, of us recovering from this pretty tough time we're in. I just think we can do better. Can I make suggestions? Sarah Stevens is our district director. Sarah runs our 3 Texas offices, one in Conroe, Montgomery County, one in Huntsville, one over in Orange. Then we have a mobile office. But we also, if you want to stay updated or you want to keep giving me feedback, come to our website. We've got an e-newsletter. Love to have you be part of it. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Yeah, we're doing it all. And would love to have you part of it because it really helps me. The reason I've always lived back home, commuted to Washington every week, every Monday morning for 13 years, is that I want to stay close to the communities I represent. I never want to move away. Sort of get in that bubble up there. You know what I mean? So staying here, and we do that so we can hear from you on what we need to be working on. So I'd be honored if you'd come to the website and sign up. We'd love to get your thoughts and keep communicating if that's okay. Thank you very much.
Congressman, you do a great job and provide a great service to our employees, our company, and to the country. And we really appreciate you taking the time today to kick off our series. You know, one of the things we're trying to do here is to make sure that the communications does flow to Washington. We do understand the need, and we do understand that we have to participate, and it's by having people like you representing us and us being able to communicate those thoughts to you is very helpful. And he's been very helpful. He's voted with us on all of our issues, and that's another reason why we wanted to have the congressman with us here today. Hopefully you have a few minutes where you can meet some of our employees and talk to them before you have to go on to your next meeting. Thank you again, Congressman.